recording, so that way you're able to reference the presentation in the future.
All right.
Recording in progress.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending the second workshop of the Farmers Market Promotional Program. We are excited to move into this next chapter or this next unit. And I'm really excited about this particular unit and the next one. So please join, subscribe to the YouTube channel, Frenchtown Neighborhood Improvement Association. Contact the Frenchtown Neighborhood Improvement Association. Contact Ms. Christina Lynch at trident.org. You can go to that website to register for the remaining workshops and to be involved and included in everything that we have coming up over the next several months. So, again, this grant and these workshops are primarily here to teach individuals and small businesses and those who want to go into business how to step up their hobby that they may be conducting at home or in a friend's kitchen to the next level. And in order to move up to that next level of commercial production, you have to operate within a commercial facility. So just real quick, Cottage. So Cottage just basically refers to, the home, where you reside, what your domicile is, and the products that you produce from your home. So we're going to look at what those steps are and how you can move and evolve and matriculate from a cottage type of operation to more of a commercial operation. So if we want to scroll down, we can go to the first page. So we're looking at Unit 3, from cottage to commercial. And I'll read along a little bit at a time through these pages just so everybody can keep up. So one of the reasons why most of you all are here is because you do have a desire to scale your operation. The training is designed to assist in that development. So some of you are unsure if now is the time to expand, and others just know that it's that time to take things to the next level, right? So what does next level actually mean? What does it really look like for you in your operation? Is your business in a position to grow? And how much more time will be needed to expand? So all of these are questions that you have to ask yourself. You have to begin to really pay close attention to your time, your budget, the potential staff, and just how you manage your own time in particular to be able to do what's necessary to go to the next level. So these are just a few of the questions posed to get you thinking about whether or not this opportunity is available to take advantage of. We are confident that many of you will see and understand the opportunity that is being presented right before you. So let's go a little bit deeper to see if this is something that you want to move forward on. All right, so let's gain an understanding first. So cottage foods, all right? And so this is all written in the Florida legislature. So Florida law allows individuals to use their unlicensed home kitchens to produce for sale certain foods that present a low risk for foodborne illnesses. So cottage food operators can produce and sell these products directly to consumers without obtaining a food permit from the Florida Department of Ag. And gross sales for a cottage food producer must not exceed $250,000 annually. Just a few years ago, it was way less. The threshold was something like $50,000, if I remember correctly. But just a few years ago, the Florida legislature actually increased the amount that a cottage food producer could make on an annual basis. All right, so that's good. That's like really, really great for cottage food producers. But there are still limitations to how far you can actually go as a cottage producer. So we're going to go a little bit deeper into what some of those limitations are. But first, let's look at what's actually approved for cottage products, cottage food products. So if you look at this chart here, you'll see loaf, rolls, breads, biscuits, cakes, pastries, cookies, candies, confections, honey, jams, jellies, fruit pies, dried fruits, dried herbs, seasonings, mixtures, homemade pasta, cereals, trail mixes and granolas, coated and uncoated nuts, vinegar and flavored vinegars, popcorn, and popcorn balls. So these are a wide range of products that can actually be produced on a cottage level. So let's just look really quickly at the statute that the Florida legislature set in place quite a few years ago. And again, remember, it had been amended over the past couple of years to adjust amounts that cottage producers can generate. So a cottage food operation must comply with the applicable requirements of this chapter, but is exempt from the permitting requirements of 500.12. This legislature statute is actually 500.80, but it's a lot in here. We're not going to go through it all. But basically, it allows producers, to be exempt from like food permits, building permits, and things of that nature. If the food operation complies with this section and has a gross sales of cottage food products that do not exceed $250,000. Let's scroll down a little bit to section 2. A cottage food operation may sell, offer for sale, and accept payment for cottage food products over the internet or by mail order. Such products may be delivered in person, directly to the consumer, to a specific event venue, or by U.S. Postal Service or commercial mail delivery. A cottage food operation may not sell, offer for sale, or deliver cottage food products for wholesale. Number 3, a cottage food operation may only sell cottage food products which are prepackaged with a label affixed that contains the following information: the name and address, the name of the food product, and the ingredients, weight, things of that nature, allergen information, and if any nutritional claim is made, appropriate nutritional information as specified by federal labeling requirements. So as you can see, cottage food operators have to sort of go through some of the same rigorous components of creating a product and labeling a product to make certain that the general public knows what that product is, what's in it, whether or not there's, again, allergen information. So Cottage is like that gateway for stepping up to that commercial level. It's not just for, you could stay Cottage for as long as you wanted to. You can stay in there for perpetuity if you wanted to, but it sort of sets you up to go to that next level if you have that desire, because of the parameters that you have to work within to produce that product and bring it to market. So, it's little things like subsection, section 3, subsection G. At the very top of that page, the following statement printed in at least 10-point type in a color that provides a clear contrast to the background of the label. Quote, made in a cottage food operation that is not subject to Florida's food safety regulations. So you really have to put these notices on your product to make sure that people and the general public are truly aware as to what it is that you're producing, and what those components are. Yes.
And so have you ever noticed cottage food operations that did not have that label?
Oh yeah, there are plenty. There are a lot of cottage food operations that don't have, a label highlighting all of these necessary components. And the reason being is that there's no true oversight for cottage food producers. I mean, who's the cottage food police? They're not coming around. Now, if somebody from the Department of Ag and Consumer Services did come to a farmer's market and look at various products, they could most certainly take note of that and then take that information back to, their office and then contact that person, or, really communicate to that business that they're not in compliance.
Right.
And,
there's another question here as well.
Sure.
But I will make the observation that I've had where people have been like, complaints have been filed to the state,
Mm-hmm.
and then the state will contact the individual and either force them to stop operations or make the corrections. The second question is, does this statute cover homemade soaps, lotion, oils, hair care products, or herb tinctures?
Herb tinctures would most likely fall up under there. The other products don't really fall up under the cottage food industry because they're not food.
Right.
They have to be primarily food-based products. So now you have people who make soaps and, body salves and butters and things like that. That might put ingredients. They might actually follow some of these requirements, but they don't necessarily have to because it's not a food-based product.
And with that, should they put like I know there's like the FDA disclosure or some type of disclosure, they'll say like, if you're doing the homemade soaps, about like it not being having a health benefit or something of the sort, should they put that on there? Like this product has not been endorsed by the FDA.
It's not a requirement, but it can help. It can be a benefit just showing, the fact that you're transparent, that you're relaying certain information to the general public. But that doesn't have to be on that particular product.
Okay.
Not from any information that I've come across.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So, do you have to submit your records to make sure that you're not making over 250, or is it like just like I know that like I'm not making over that amount, I'm good, or is it like I have to like I'm submitted to like an FDAX or anything of that nature just to make sure I'm not doing anything?
You're not stretching beyond that threshold. From what I've come across, I haven't seen anything in the literature that says that you have to report.
Right.
I'm sure there's probably some level of accountability. It could very well be based on, and Christina, you may be able to chime in on this, maybe based on what you file,
Right.
as far as your taxes in regards to what the business generated. And that can be looked at, scrutinized, and analyzed by, the IRS. Would you say that would probably be the accountability feature?
So I'll say that for the most part, there's an honor system, right? That
Right.
once you get to that threshold, you should be reporting and doing what you need to do. However, I'll note that there are other filing requirements. Like if you sell, and I know it's not necessarily food, but like if you sell a product, like a prepared product, where you're supposed to collect sales tax, and you're not reporting that, one thing that I see a lot are businesses that are failing to report to FDOR. And if you don't report or respond to the Department of Revenue when they reach out to you, they will estimate what they think you're selling and then tell you what they think the sales tax is. And if you don't correct them and it's over that threshold, there's a possibility that they would then communicate that to their, the other departments that could come after you for the same thing. So lack of response can actually hurt you and create a larger problem versus thinking that the problem goes away. So it's best to report accurately and just do what you need to do. And then one of the things with part of this program is we're offering workshops, but there's also the opportunity for there to be food training if you needed to get those licenses that you can. And it is a lot of work, but it protects you as a business owner because you want to separate your personal assets and liability from what's helping you earn revenue.
Yeah, I mean, like there's a section or statute 500.121 that actually on the state legislature's webpage that goes into disciplinary actions. And so like one example of non-compliance would be if there was a complaint, like you mentioned, like a customer or somebody complaining about a business, and then the state wants to enter the kitchen, they want to enter into the premises where you produce and you refuse entry, then there are some disciplinary actions that can be taken against the producer. And so if you get a chance to just look up Florida State Legislature section 500.121, it'll go straight into disciplinary actions on that particular item or that person. You see it on the page, right? Yeah. So also highlighted right in the middle of that page is where the statutes come from. So, and I really highly recommend that people begin to look at the state laws that surround or that are created and that apply to your particular business. It doesn't matter what it is, because these state laws really govern what type of actions that you can take, what you're allowed to do, and what those disciplinary actions truly look like if you don't follow suit. If you really don't adhere to what those guidelines are, you'd be amazed that there are some disciplinary actions out there that might seem a little extreme. But if you don't know these things because you don't go and look at these statutes, then it could put you in a very compromising position where, people have had their businesses shut down simply because they were non-compliant. And it could have been something very simple that they could have taken care of. But, if you don't know and you just do it anyway, and somehow it comes back to you, then, you can get in serious trouble. So cottage food production is limited in the types of products that can be made. So there's also a plethora of limitations on cottage food production that will impede your ability to sell to multiple types of sales outlets, thus limiting your ability to generate revenue. Some of these limitations are as follows. You cannot sell your cottage food product in association with someone who is licensed under FDAC, so the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. Essentially, you cannot sell your cottage product with a non-cottage product. Cottage foods cannot be sold to restaurants. Now, that's an interesting one. You can't go to the restaurant to sell the product. But I've heard of situations where a chef can go to you, right? Or, go to where you might happen to be set up and buy a product that they can then take back to their restaurant. So, everybody has to be careful when they step into that territory. Cottage foods cannot be sold on consignment. It cannot be sold to a wholesaler, broker, or distributor who would resell the product. Nonprofit organizations cannot sell cottage food products, not a single family domestic residence. And it gets tricky when even the residence, the domicile that people may reside in, it gets real specific. And I think we're going to see some of those as we move down. Where are we? Some farmers markets may require a food license. Most don't that I've come across, but some may. Cottage foods cannot be sold in a shop or a retail setting. Cottage foods cannot be produced from a motorhome kitchen. See that now we're getting specific about even the type of domicile that people are dwelling in. But there's a kitchen, right? They produce food for themselves, but not a motorhome kitchen.
Question.
Yes.
I think it's maybe kind of themed here. Does this cover food sold from catering trucks?
Does it cover food sold from catering?
So I don't know if this is the same thing as a food truck or
No, a food truck is completely different from just a
truck.
No. Well, what's a catering truck?
Yeah. Robin, would you be able to provide some additional information? Yes, same as a food truck. So
Right.
I was referencing.
Yeah. So when you have a food truck, there are certain requirements that you have to abide by as well.
So you should be licensed.
You should. Oh, absolutely. If you're a food truck, you should be licensed.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Cottage foods cannot be made or produced in a rented kitchen. The address where the product is made must be put on the label. Products with hemp extracts such as CBD and THC do not meet cottage food requirements. Those products must be produced in a commercial facility. And it's interesting because as we were trying to garner interest early on for these particular series of workshops, we came across a young woman who actually has a business where she was taking THC and making like edibles, right? And when she began to tell me this, I said, well, where are you producing these products? And she said, in my kitchen. I said, you need to attend these workshops. You need to figure out like what's necessary so you don't get in trouble. Like, because like anything dealing with cannabis has to be produced in a commercial facility, and that's key because I mean, look at the momentum that the cannabis industry has. When we're talking about hemp, CBD, THC products, these products have to be dealt with in a commercial kitchen. Otherwise, you are setting yourself up for a lot of particular backlash and legal action. Yes.
Would I be able to make these foods at like a kitchen, like at the Frenchtown market?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's part of why we're having these workshops, because the Frenchtown Farmers Market or the Frenchtown Hub is a certified commercial kitchen, and you can almost produce just about any food related item and even items with the hemp, CBD, THC in that kitchen. You know, we want to use these workshops to promote people who want to go into those industries to come into the kitchen, look at the facilities, see the benefit of operating within a shared kitchen space. So this is a shared kitchen space where you pay for hours that you can utilize for the production of your product. So like that's a great thing when you're taking it to the next level, because you need to know, well, you know, do I need 10 hours? Do I need 20? Do I need 25? Do I need 30? And so knowing and paying close attention to how long it takes you to produce your products will serve you in the short and long term when you're looking to move into a commercial kitchen space, because it costs. It costs. Now, we're hoping to be able to assist folks. Now, there is a part of this grant that helps potential kitchen users to get their Safe Serve certification. We'll go into what Safe Serve is. I mean, it's just basically kind of like a food handler's license, and there's, you know, an opportunity for folks who want to get into a commercial kitchen, specifically Frenchtown, to have that Safe Serve certification sponsored by this particular grant. So that's a great thing. So we want to encourage potential kitchen users, whether you're a farmer who wants to get in, a cottage food person who wants to get in, to really look into this program, because there are perks and benefits for being involved. Where are we? Pet treats are not considered cottage. There's a lot of meat scraps that come out of restaurants, that come out of other meat producing facilities. There's always waste, right? A lot of this waste, you know, we have the technology today to actually take that waste and process it into treats for animals. However, I think because it's specifically designed for animals, they make sure that that's something that has to go through a little bit more rigorous process in operating out of a commercial kitchen to be able to produce those types of snacks. Pumpkin and sweet potato pies are not allowed to be sold as a cottage product. Why do you think that is? Pumpkin and sweet potato.
Honest with you, that's news to me.
Yeah.
That's very specific.
Yeah.
So I'm intrigued. Oh, I have an answer here in the chat.
Okay. What do they say? Huh?
Mold. That was.
Eggs.
Think about the products that are used to create those pies,
That's true.
right?
That's true.
So sweet potato and pumpkin pies, that's a no-go as a cottage food product. So, you know, hey, you got a sweet potato pie recipe from mom and grandma from long time ago. So that's something that's just kind of normal. But yeah, so you have to be careful with that as well. Fresh juicing and bottling the juice is not permitted. Again, shelf life issues, right? Dehydrated meats and jerky are not allowed as cottage foods. And you would think that would be there'd be some leniency there because they're dehydrated. And when you remove the moisture out of a product, it's stable at that point. It has a shelf life. It can last for over a year. But most likely, you know, we're talking meats, right? And so meats can carry certain types of pathogens and bacteria that, you know, could be harmful to people.
And before you move on, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There's two questions I wanted to ask. One is, what about other pies outside of the pumpkin and sweet potato pies? 'Cause
Okay.
I did think about apple pie just randomly, but do you know if other pies are
I believe other pies are allowed.
okay?
But those two are, like you said, very specific, right?
Right.
In there. Yeah, yeah.
And then the second question is, if you were to utilize the commercial kitchen, do you have to use the Frenchtown, the kitchen share address for your business? Do you know the answer to that?
If you are,
If
If
you're
you're-
utilizing it as your commercial kitchen, do you have to use the kitchen shares address, or can you still use your own?
well, at that point, you're not Cottage anymore. And so there's no need to put your home address on it.
So the idea is you would be using the commercial kitchen, have your license,
Right.
but
And
because it's not you're basically you're leasing space. Could they then use their address if they're leasing space for the commercial kitchen?
they could put their address on there still, but that was, remember, that's a requirement for a person who's actually operating out of their home kitchen. But if their home address is also their business address, I would persuade them to look at it from that perspective. That if their home address is their business address, then absolutely put the address on there.
Okay.
But they wouldn't necessarily need an address once you operate out of the commercial kitchen and have the proper labeling. You don't necessarily need an actual address on the label.
Right, that's true. And then so Becca wanted to ask about key lime pie because it has dairy and eggs too. But Becca, since it's not specified and they only say specifically pumpkin and sweet potato pies, I would assume it's okay.
Yeah.
And I think Debbie responded, water content is important because too high in product will spoil. So just wanting to address the comments that were made.
No, those are great. And they have the folks who are just asking and commenting, they have experience creating these types of products. So they're bringing their knowledge already to, these are some of the issues that could be why it's just pumpkin and sweet potato and not these other types of pies. So.
And I think it's important because even as someone who frequents markets, you see a lot of folks that are selling these items that they may not know are in violation of Cottage foods.
Yeah.
So it makes me wonder, is there, as we have this program to assist people in getting the certification and utilizing the kitchen, if it's worth having some type of education component, because I know like Department of Ag has come to the Frenchtown Farmers Market at least once in the last couple of years and just,
Oh yeah,
questions
they're watching,
asking and saying, "Hey,
absolutely.
What are you selling? Do you have a license?"
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and to that point, if a market is being ran, I do feel strongly that the market manager or just whomever is running the market needs to be knowledgeable on these things,
Right.
so that when you do have cottage producers, that you can help them be better cottage producers and say, hey, your label just says hokey pokey pies, and that's it. There ain't nothing else on there, right? You need all of these components.
Right.
Otherwise, we may have to deny you service here, because at the end of the day, who's ultimately going to be liable for allowing these producers to come on site,
Right.
and sell those products?
Yeah.
It could very well come back to the market itself and bite them, and hurt that potential market. Somebody else had something? I see you looking.
Yeah, there was another question. So Becca was asking about a rental kitchen. So Becca, when we were speaking about renting a kitchen, we meant a commercial kitchen. So what some individuals do if they're operating out of their home, but they want to utilize a commercial kitchen to get their license, you'd be renting space from, like, Frenchtown has a commercial kitchen that they rent to local businesses that need a commercial kitchen. So it's not necessarily renting someone else's kitchen in their home, but like a commercial kitchen. So Frenchtown has one for the community. There are very few, but some folks that will allow you to like sublease, or they'll sublease their kitchen to local producers, but it's very far and few between. Not many people do it.
And speaking on that, a lot of producers sort of cheat the system when they might be storing their items in a commercial kitchen, but still producing their products at home. But on paper, what are they showing? That they're utilizing this commercial kitchen. So a lot of producers do that.
Right.
And with, like you said, people renting out other folks' commercial kitchens, you have no idea how many people are paying the person, right? They're paying, but it's more hassle for them to haul all of their ingredients to that kitchen versus just staying at home and producing their products.
Right. And
So it happens quite a bit.
And then Robin had a question, and I see Debbie answered it. Do churches have commercial kitchens?
Yes.
Many do. As long as they meet the requirements of what a commercial kitchen is, and the Department of Agriculture can tour and confirm that the kitchen is appropriate.
Yeah.
Then they will. So that could be an option for you as well.
Absolutely. Churches are a huge resource for people who want to utilize commercial spaces. So the cottage food industry has some serious limitations to the types of products that can be produced, the outlets to sell those products. And although we highlighted the limiting aspects of the cottage food industry in the state of Florida, there are positive aspects to the cottage food industry as well. Our point in the above list is to highlight the fact that there are lots of restrictions that you can bypass when operating out of a commercial kitchen. So this is what we're promoting. We want people to see the viability and the benefits of operating inside of a commercial kitchen, and how we can actually enhance their entire operation. So number 2, scaling your operation. So moving into commercial production in a licensed facility is a step in the scaling up of your operation. Ask yourself if you're in a position to enhance your operation by adding value to your current products. Most of you are already distributing your product to a customer base, but if you had the opportunity to expand your distribution network, would you? Would you do something like that? So activity 3.1, thinking about what you currently produce and distribute to your customer base. Write down, we'd like for you to write down what types of products could be produced from what you already produce. All right, so list additional types of products that you can make from your main product. Now that might be a little difficult to conceptualize, but I know some of you who make products, there's always a waste, there's always a byproduct, there's always something that you don't use. So I want you to think about what else can be produced outside of your primary product. All right, I got 7 spaces for you to do that. I probably should have just put 2.
Well, while people are thinking about that,
yes,
I know, I mentioned I make tea blends,
right.
but sometimes depending on the products, everything for me has to be consumed. But I forget that I can make herbal steam. So especially when people want to addressing like their respiratory system or they're having a cold, we can do that. We can do spice blends. So, okay, I have excess herbs, but they're may not the best in the tea because you're only using like 10%. But I forget I can sell spices with that.
Yeah.
Or one thing I did with the kids was we made apple cider spice blends. So basically cinnamon and clove and such, and they made this spice blends that they can then make apple cider with. So even though when people are thinking about what they already have, it may be a little bit out of the box, or things that you can take those excess materials and create something that maybe same ingredients, but used for something different.
Used differently.
Just need a different marketing tactic for it. So wanting to give that, I know that some folks here have some really great value-added products already, but thinking outside of the box, you're thinking seasonal.
Yeah, absolutely. So we just want you to really, tap into what it is that you do and see if there is something else that can be created from what you already produce. All right. So, all right. So now that you've identified the various types of products that can add value to your operation, you must now determine if your business is ready to expand into new food processing. Excuse me. Laying the foundation for a business to grow requires taking a new approach and a new course of action. There are specific business questions or specific questions business owners must examine before an enormous undertaking. The first major hurdle is the creation of your business model or business plan, which we'll talk more about in Unit 5. A great tool to utilize for the business model is the business model canvas. And I dropped the website there so you can actually go to that website to see a little bit more and go a little bit more in depth into what the business model canvas is. So it contains 9 building blocks which the business owner must consider. Taken from the Iowa State University's Scaling Up Specialty Crop Processing Toolkit, the 9 building blocks include as follows. Number 1, and Christina, please chime in on these. I know this is a part of your expertise. Customer segments. Customer segments define the demographics of the people, businesses, or organizations that will acquire your value proposition. Answering the question, who do you help? Value proposition is the combination of products and services that you offer your customer segments. Answering the question, what do you do?
Can we pause there for a
Yes, let's do it.
So like with the value proposition, we don't want to think of all the things that you do, right? But like what's the most popular or most impactful items?
Mm-hmm.
So part of the business model canvas is either developing or refocusing the business.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of things that we all can do, but what do you do best and what's most impactful?
Right.
So when you're thinking about your customer segment and who you serve, whether it's gender, race, age, we talked about mindset, what attracts them the most? So where do you see most of the value that you're giving to your customers? Where are they? And then what do they most value? So that's really important.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily what you like to sell the most, but what creates the most value for those customers.
And then has the greatest impact, as you mentioned.
Right.
Okay. Wonderful. So now, coming off of the customer segment and that value proposition, the channel, number 3, the channels. Channels are the way you deliver value proposition to your customer segment. And it encompasses all points of contact from pre-sale to post-sale, answering the question, how do you interact? Christine, you want to chime in on that at all?
I do.
Keep going.
So part of this program is the idea that you'll have the resource available to assist you in the channels as well. So the marketing component of how you're interacting. So that could be radio, or not billboard, if it's farmers market, canvassing, is it word of mouth? But really diving deep to what are you doing now? Are you reaching those people or not? And if you're not reaching your customer segment, so again, if you are like Sundiata with your business, if you are targeting a certain, there are women of a certain demographic, how is the best way for you to reach them?
Right.
And then what channels are the easiest way for you to access those individuals?
Mm-hmm.
So there is assistance available through this program this year to help in that area, but we want to think of all the ways that you currently interact and then what's most impactful. So going back to that impact. That
impact, right. So how do you interact? That's and that's such a huge part of running your business. Most small businesses don't have a marketing budget, right? So fortunately, we do have various outlets and avenues that we can use digitally to expand and enhance your ability to interact with your customer segment. Number 4, customer relationships. Determine the type of business relationships you maintain with each of your customer segments, answering the question, how do you reach them? Christina, remember, chime in if you want to touch on each one of these. Okay. That's pretty easy, right? Number 5, revenue streams is the cash you acquire from your customer segment for your value proposition, answering the question, how much will you make? Okay, so you have to figure out if you're going to reach a certain amount of people. You're going to reach a certain segment of people with your proposition of value. You know, how much of a particular thing, how much of your product are you going to make to be able to reach and connect with that particular customer segment?
And adding to this section for the revenue streams, the idea is, and you touched on this in the first workshop, having more than one revenue stream.
Mm-hmm.
So thinking about what are the various sources of revenue that you can make, whether it's like the Red Hills online market, if it's a product versus always going to the farmer's market, like are there passive ways and active ways that you can sell? The idea though is for you to be able to grow your business with the current resources you have by being more efficient and being able to have a greater impact without it being out of reach, right? So thinking if we're thinking about the various products that you can potentially make and who your customer segment is, you know, how many various ways or how many sources of revenue can you have? So this business model canvas is for us. Again, we're trying to streamline and also grow our business.
Wonderful, wonderful. I couldn't have said it better. No, I was playing. This is our expert here when it comes to these types of things. So number 6, key resources are all the assets that you need in order to have a successful business. It answers the question, what do you need? What are the components that you need in order to have a successful business? That could be from your technology. You know, what's your supply line looking like? You know, what help me out? What are some other key resources? The technology, equipment, all of those things. You know, you're looking at when you step into the commercial kitchen. It's amazing because all of the machinery and the technology and the equipment that you would need is right there in the kitchen. And so, you know, there are a few particular points of this business model canvas that the market and the Frenchtown Hub are looking to actually assist and help alleviate a lot of that pressure and a lot of that stress of trying to figure out all of these components of your business model. And so folks like Christina and her company Trident, they're established and set up to assist potential kitchen goers with these issues to help understand and identify many of these segments that producer would need to explore and really go a little bit deeper in. Key activities, number 7. Key activities define the critical activities your business must undertake to be successful. Answer the question, how do you do it? Key activities, how do you do it? Want to expound a little bit?
And this is related to how you generate revenue. So, like, what does it take for you to create the product or service that you are trying to, you know, make revenue with, and who you're trying to serve?
Mm-hmm. All right, wonderful. All right, number 8, key partnerships. Define the network of suppliers and partners your business will need. Answering the question, who will help you? All right. And number 9, cost structure defines all the costs incurred to operate your business. Answering the question, what will it cost?
We have a question on the floor. So, are there any regulations around packaging?
Well, it depends on the product. It depends on what type of product you're creating.
And so Robin was asking about expiration dates. I know. So if you get licensed, I don't know under Cottage, are you required to have an expiration date though?
Not on Cottage.
Okay.
Not on Cottage. Yes.
Are you required to have all of the nutritional facts on there?
No.
If you're licensed. I don't think. I know you don't if you're under Cottage.
No, not. It doesn't have to be as extensive. But remember, at the top of the state legislature subsection, they say you got to list allergen information, things of that nature. Okay. So yeah, address. So there are a few requirements, but an entire nutritional profile.
Right.
No, you don't, because I think the powers that be understand that small businesses and cottage businesses don't have the resources to go utilize a lab and pay X number of dollars, right, to try to have them dissect and analyze their product to see what all of those contents are, right? Because what's on a nutritional label? We're talking calories, servings per, per amount, sugar, salt, or sodium. Like all of that stuff is on there. It's exactly. So a cottage food producer doesn't have to have that detailed information. But once you go commercial, absolutely.
And Bloom made a comment that you only need to list a date produced. So I think that answers Robin's next question about what about a date of production?
The expiration date or something like that.
So
just
only the date of production.
Date of production.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
No expiration date needed?
Under Cottage.
No expiration date, just the date of production.
Under Cottage. Yeah. So that is the business model canvas. Again, go to that website, liveplan, liveplan.com. But this business model canvas is, it's all over the place. And our resident expert, Christina, if you want to reach out to her and go a little bit deeper in terms of your own operation, please contact her. And contact Trident so you can, get assistance with those particular items. All right. So it says once the existing business model is captured, the specifics must be considered, which will help the owner to see the big picture. Questions like, are you ready to expand your operation? What does the growth opportunity look like? Are there new markets or new customers that you should aim for? And will the new market and or new customers support the growth required for an adequate return on investment? So you should be able to answer those questions once you thoroughly, analyze your own business and take your business through the rigorous business model canvas and, really answer those questions yourself about your operation. You should be able to know whether or not you're ready to expand or not. All right. So the scaling of equipment is a major part of any business looking to increase their operation, increase their size, increase their markets that they can go into. So equipment, huge part of expansion, especially of a food operation. So we're going to look at just, a few of the pieces of equipment. And a lot of these things you will find in church kitchens, licensed facilities, again, other restaurants and things of that nature. So these are just items that are pretty hefty in cost. That's why a shared kitchen space like Frenchtown is such a brilliant idea, just so that the producer doesn't have to worry and stress and strain over the fact that they need these items, but don't have access on their own. So compartment sink, hand washing sink, various work surfaces, refrigerator, freezer, dehydrator, packing machine. Many of these pieces of equipment, range anywhere from 10, 15,000 up to, 45, 50, 60, $70,000, depending on who you get it from, where you get it from, whether or not it's used or new. But these types of equipment are necessary in order for you to scale up your operation. So imagine having all of this equipment and more at your fingertips to produce your raw product into something that could generate additional revenue for your operation. So let's look at distribution. Okay. So building from the first two units, you should have a better idea of what you have to offer, who your customers are, some ways on how your product will reach the consumer. So let's go a little bit deeper in how you'll distribute your product to your customers. So two primary ways for your product to reach your customers: selling directly and indirectly to your customer base. So selling directly to your customers is one way, or using someone else like a middleman, which is an indirect way to sell your product for you. There are advantages and disadvantages to both methods. So go ahead and take a look at the little diagram, and you'll see directly to your customer. One of the advantages is that you make more money per sale, right? It's almost like you can charge a retail price for your product if you're going directly to the customer. One of the disadvantages is that you have fewer customers that you reach. You're not able to reach a larger market on your own. You know, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of companies and producers will, you know, lend their products out or go indirectly and sell wholesale to a larger company that has a larger reach. So that's your indirect outlet to customers. So one of the advantages, you're able to reach more customers, right? I give an example. I produce a craft compost that we recently got into 2 distributors, 2 stores, one a nursery and one a grocery store. So we actually have our bag compost in these retail outlets, but yeah, I have to reduce my price on the product to get it in, but the traffic that's coming through, right? These operations are gonna, like, you know, there are probably more people that'll see my product just being on the shelves in that store for a week versus me trying to reach out on social media and setting up at the farmer's market, right? So 20 bags went out to one nursery. They've had it in their newsletter. That weekend, people came in and just bought it all up. So over the course of a week and a half, 20 bags were distributed. They got 3 left. So now we have to ramp back up, get product back in that store. But the traffic, the foot traffic, and the visibility of the brand and the logo, that's what's important to me at this particular time. So I'm willing to reduce my price to get in the store for those additional views that the product will get. Any questions? Chime in. Anybody? Anything on that?
And for anyone that's thinking about starting or the farmers markets are a great way to have the direct communication. So if you're looking for feedback, if you're unsure if your final product is the product, it's a great way to build relationships. And also for people who have purchased from you directly and now they have a recognized brand, local brand in the store, it makes it easier to sell out versus if you're just now beginning and you try to sell to a store, they may be less likely to to purchase it initially, only because you have to kind of gain that brand, create the brand.
They don't know anything about me.
Customers, right?
Yeah.
So part of this is to encourage people to create the product and go to the market and have like some touch of a direct producer to consumer, just so that way you can get your feet wet, sell to some folks, make some money, right, and then be able to also gain the feedback in the process to perfect your craft and be able to sell it wholesale.
Yeah.
So don't be discouraged if you've tried to sell to a store and haven't gotten there yet. It just might mean that you just need to work on the marketing, the branding, perfecting the product.
Yeah, absolutely. And having sort of built up a rapport and a relationship with these stores, and sometimes I would just go in and just initiate that conversation, knowing that I didn't have the product ready to go yet, but just to start that conversation, plant that seed, and let them know that, hey, in the near future, I'm going to have something. And then I go in, I bring a sample of what it is that I have, and I know it's good, right? I know it looks good, it smells good, and it works. And so they're going to touch it, they're going to smell it, and they're like, okay, yeah, we want this in the store. But creating those relationships is key. And I know that I wouldn't sell 20 bags of my compost just posted up at the farm, right? I could put it online, hey, come buy compost at the farm for such and such amount and take away a pretty bag of compost. People ain't gonna show up like that. But people who are in the grocery store or at that nursery, they walking through and they just see this bag, the label, like, okay, I heard about that guy. I heard about that operation. And, you know, and then with the operation promoting it themselves, that's a huge win for a small business.
Free marketing.
Yeah, exactly. So at the very tail end of Unit 2, you'll recall that we talked about some of the venues that these products, or some of the venues that you can sell your value-added products. So really quick, activity 3.2, really simple exercise. I just want you to write the word direct or indirect next to each one of those outlets, so you can really, know and see which one is which. So farmers markets, grocery store, food hub, online market, Facebook marketplace, restaurants, on-farm market stand, festivals and events. So which one's direct? Which ones are indirect? How's everybody doing on Zoom? Everybody okay? Give us a yes. Give us a yes. Type in yes if you're doing okay and you're learning something this evening.
Everyone has had excellent questions, so thank
Yes.
you for bringing value.
I love the questions. The questions are great. The questions are absolutely phenomenal.
Everyone has said yes, yes, and yes. So
All right.
we're going in the right direction.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, so I'm gonna interact with the participants really quick, and feel free to type in your answer. So farmers market, direct or indirect? Type it in really quick. What we got?
Oh, sorry, I was going to answer the question. Direct. And we do have answers. Direct.
Yeah.
I had to remember I'm not
Right.
murdering.
Grocery store, direct or indirect?
Indirect.
All right, correct. All right, a food hub. Think about that one. Well, you have to kind of understand what that food hub might consist of. Like usually in a food hub,
So
who's in there selling products?
we have one direct and two indirect.
It depends though, because I've seen food
Yeah.
hubs being operated in several different ways.
Right.
Right.
So
So it depends, right? Because I may want to set up and rent space in a food hub, right? So that would be direct. You see? Or it could work the other way around where I ask the food hub, hey, can I set up a display and have these products sold here? And I don't, I'm nowhere to be found. I don't want to stand there. So that could be an indirect way of selling the product because I'm still negotiating with the hub itself, hoping that they agree to just post my product up and me not be present. So you're right. It could go either way. So all of those answers are actually correct.
Everyone's correct.
Everyone's correct. Everybody gets a gold star.
this can wait until later, but outside of Red Hills, is there anybody else that has a food hub where they absorb other people's produce and then sell it out? Is it?
That's the only one.
I thought,
No, who?
does Seed Time Harvest, I know she purchases from other farmers.
She's
and
like a
breeds her
CSA,
own
yeah.
CSA.
Yeah.
But she's not the one growing everything. So
Right.
that would be the other alternative to
Yeah, you're right.
the online market.
Yeah.
What is CSA?
Yeah.
It's a little different.
It's different. And when we talk capacity also, the online market is it's easier to shop through. It's easier to know when your food, because they have like a specific delivery day from the farmers to the hub, and then a specific day and times that it goes out into the community where whether they're delivering to your front door or whether they're delivering to a sub hub where people go to pick their bags of produce up from. Seed Time Harvest is wonderful because the owner there, Seta Barnhart, she lists exactly what's available, and you have an opportunity to pick what you want, and then she'll gather those items and have a way to deliver to your doorstep. And so Red Hills, again, is operating on a much larger capacity, more resources. Seed Time Harvest, very much a true small business. And so I think that small businesses like ours can learn from larger operations that have a greater capacity, which in turn means that you're a lot more efficient in how you run your operation. So I know Seed Time Harvest does a lot of personal delivering, right? And I know at times she's had other drivers to go and deliver. But when you really think about gathering food from farmers on the outskirts of town, getting to being in a specific location where you have to then bag that particular customer's bag and then driving to their homes, and you're covering Leon, Jefferson, that's a lot. And so we have to look at the ability for the online market to say, you know what, we know that we can't drive to everybody's home, right? And there's an additional fee if you want us to drive to your home. Otherwise, we're going to set up these sub hubs. You got 20 customers that live in a particular region, right? And we're going to take all of those 20 bags, boom, like you go to the co-op every Thursday, you see all of these color red Hills online market bags on a cart. And then the customers are responsible for then coming into the co-op to pick their bag up. So I think Seed Time can potentially learn and build certain levels of efficiency by maybe looking at that model, but that would also mean that she would have to have enough customers in a particular area to create a hub for her people. And so then you go back and you say, well, maybe I need to constrain and pull back from the range that I've created for myself over the years, and maybe relegate it to a smaller range so that I can create a greater level of efficiency for myself. So it's a few different ways, but both operations are wonderful. We just want to see the small business, rise up and increase efficiency and find different ways that she can do that without having to drive all over the world to deliver that food. So.
And Red Hills blew up, or like literally blew up overnight because of COVID. So when all the grocery stores are closed, it expanded swiftly.
Very swift.
And I'm on the board for them, so they're still having growing pains, but it started to really even address food deserts in the way that, like, there's a hub in Bristol, there's one in Thomasville, so now they're even going so far out, like as far as like 45 minutes to an hour out, and there's other rural areas asking for food hubs because they want to be part of it, because they can get fresh produce.
Yeah.
And then it's also...
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Is there a food hub in Frenchtown?
No, I know that there's a separate initiative that we're hopefully that we can get some food hubs in some other neighborhoods within that urban core, that we're not there yet, but it's hopefully in the next few years we'll be able to. But it's based off of demand. So the customer or the area can ask for one, which is not a problem, but the idea is that those residents are going to order. That way, in town is not as difficult, but like if someone's in Bristol and there's one order, is it worth driving to that point? But the idea is creating the demand and then working with those areas where there can be a hub where people can come and get the food. So it's kind of a catch-22 of there has to be a space where people can pick up their groceries, and then there has to be the demand for it as well.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you.
I think they actually expanded into Panama City.
Oh, wow.
If I'm not mistaken.
I think they did. Like it's
People driving that far?
well, right, because if you think about it, there's over 100 farmers that participate in the online market.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a smaller farmer, it's a great way. Like if you don't sell something at the farmers market,
Right.
I mean, granted, there's a system, so you have to follow the timeline.
Right.
But it's a great way for you to be able to sell more without having to be at the market, especially if like the weather isn't ideal. People love online shopping. You can just find what you want, and then you can order from 10 different farmers.
Yeah.
With one order.
Right.
And it goes into that one bag,
Right.
and it can be items from 20 different farmers. Yeah, it's a great venue, and the beautiful thing about it, like you mentioned, in contrast to the farmers market, farmers will harvest in anticipation of selling 40 pounds of food. Over the course of the market, you may only end up selling 20 pounds of food or 25 pounds. Now you have this overage that you then have to figure out what to do with. You're going to take some home. You're going to try to barter with other vendors at the market really quick to try to get rid of it. So that becomes something that a lot of farmers don't want to deal with after the market is over. So Red Hills, you list, they order, you get a pick ticket every Tuesday morning, and that's giving you an additional day or day and a half to harvest everything that you need to harvest. So it's pick to order. There's no waste. You're not picking more than what is on that ticket. And so we need more venues like that. But to your point also, it's beautiful for the small farmer. I've been inside there delivering food, and you'll see a mid-sized farm, 1 week, they've sold $900 worth of produce. You go to another shelf and you go to that farmer's shelf and you look, they've sold $30 worth of produce. And so it's a wide range of what can be made and who can sell in that venue. You can be a startup farm that started, just at the beginning of this season, and you already started growing and harvesting and selling, and you may not have a lot, but there's an avenue for you. So it's a great venue for small startup farms who haven't even, a lot of people aren't comfortable doing markets.
Right.
They don't want to stand there for 4 hours in a day and interact with a bunch of people, So they use places like Red Hills to really promote their product, get it out there, and that also helps to build brand awareness as well. So Red Hills is a good venue, and there were discussions about having Frenchtown at a hub at one point, but it just wasn't pursued at the time. And so, like Christina said, there are other things coming down the pipeline that will allow us to create hubs throughout the community. I'm still an advocate that the time is now to set up and implement things that can be set up, that can bring greater attention and greater traffic through the Frenchtown hub. And so whether that's still an option or not, I think the Red Hills hub could be a great spot for people to come and pick up their produce, having it being ordered through Red Hills. It just takes a little bit of coordination between admin there and admin with Red Hills and see if it's, because when you really think about it, the Frenchtown hub is just 5 minutes away from Midtown, from Lafayette, from all of these surrounding communities. So there are people there, because some of these people will have to drive from Midtown, maybe, all the way to the co-op. Actually, I think they have a hub it's a restaurant right on Thomasville Road, Waterworks.
Oh, Waterworks.
Yeah, so Waterworks is the actual hub. So they've created like so many hubs. So would it even make sense to have a hub at Frenchtown when there's a few surrounding the hub
It
itself?
depends if the residents, and because you have two options. If you can pick up at a hub, which is cheaper delivery charge, or
Right.
you can have it to your home.
Yeah,
So if there's enough residents that are like, no, we don't have the transportation and we want to walk to a hub in Frenchtown or Griffin Heights or somewhere around it, they might feel more comfortable picking up in their neighborhood versus going to Waterworks.
yeah,
Which in my, so it's
Right.
a great location,
yeah,
but everyone's personality is different. So I
Right.
just want to make sure that folks are just comfortable wherever they're going, and traffic flow is a thing.
hmm
Certain times of day, there's just a lot, traffic's backed up.
yeah. And it also speaks to what we've been struggling with in Frenchtown at the farmers market for quite a while, is engaging the very people who are there in the community. So, initially, if Frenchtown was to be set up at a hub, we would literally be trying to get people right on the outskirts of Frenchtown and Griffin Heights to come down into Frenchtown to increase visibility and to increase traffic and letting them know that, hey, we have a farmer's market right here. So there would be a few challenges and things that we've experienced over the years, but it's not impossible. It just takes a new thought, fresh, innovative ideas to bring people into that space. All right, so where were we? Online market, indirect or direct?
I guess it also depends.
Online market,
I don't know, how are we defining online market?
unless it's your online
I
market.
don't know how we define it.
Because I actually had one at one point. I actually had a system set up called Barn to Door. This thing was really cool. And I had it mentioned a little bit later on down here. Barn, the number 2, door. It was a great online platform. It just got a little expensive and I wasn't producing as much food at the time, so I had to let it go. But it was an online platform that I was able to get my compost customers who I pick up from weekly to purchase produce from the farm. And then when I'm going to pick up their swap out their compost bucket, I'm also delivering a bag of produce. So it was a great, like, knocking two birds out with one stone scenario. But when I began to scale back on my food production, I couldn't justify paying for that particular online service. But primarily online would be indirect. Primarily, yes. Facebook Marketplace. Direct or indirect?
I mean, maybe I'm lazy, but creating the ad and all that stuff, it seems really direct. If I'm, because you'd have to deliver it yourself.
It is
The
direct.
customer, technically.
It is direct.
Okay.
Because you're using a third-party platform, right, to sell products, but when they purchase something from you, you know, you got to deliver it or you got to meet with that person. There are a few times I think where you can mail something off to them, but who are they interacting with primarily? You. They're interacting with you. Restaurants.
Oh,
We
indirect.
have to bring it to that.
The online folks had it indirect pretty quickly, actually.
Restaurants.
If you're selling, theoretically, if you're selling to the restaurant, you're not really selling to the direct consumer.
Now, the restaurant is your consumer.
Right.
And you're delivering your food to the restaurant, to the chefs, to the owners. That you're at that point, the people who are going to be consuming the food are not your customer. The restaurant is your direct client.
You're like, hold on.
I need the definition of the customer. That's a tricky one.
It's the restaurant. That is the entity that you're interfacing with, right?
I would say
So that's direct.
Yeah, I would say that is direct.
So ponder on that. Come back to me if
I would
you.
say it's direct.
All right. What about on-farm market stand? Direct. All right. And festivals and events. That'll be direct. All right.
So online agree with numbers 7 and 8.
Okay. All right. Cool. So, last little bit here, and then we can kind of open it up for a little bit more discussion or any additional questions that they have.
Bloom agrees with number 6 as well with the restaurant. So
That is direct. There we go. All right. So we know that you found this information useful regarding what cottage operations are, their limitations, how you can penetrate various types of markets to sell your product. The cottage industry definitely has its benefits. There are also many restrictions, especially if you want to navigate into additional revenue streams. Where you produce your product is the determining factor for where you can distribute your product. As a new or growing business, you should always be thinking big and about what achievements your company can accomplish. We are encouraging the scaling up of your operation in order to create a more sound economic foundation for you, your business, and your community. Many of you have the capability to soar in the food industry with the products you offer, and the Frenchtown Hub wants to play a vital role in assessing your operation to reach that peak. So what we'll end up doing for the next workshop is we'll move into Unit 4, which is a fun workshop. I mean, this one is, I enjoyed this particular unit here. I've learned a lot. I hope that everybody else has. But Unit 4, if you just scroll down, you can put on the screen just to show folks. All right, so here, Unit 4, we're definitely going into value-added production. Right? We want to talk about product diversification, food safety, and the kitchen share process. So we're going to dive into all of these topics and more on the next unit. I didn't want to keep everybody for this full 2 hours, so we did pretty well on this hour, 15, hour, 20, hour, 30 time slot. Because when y'all get the yawning, I'm like,
No one is
all right, I need to go ahead and shut it down.
before anyone leaves, we just want to make the plug that we are working on getting the resources available so that way you can take advantage of the additional parts of this program, which is assisting people with the value added production and the Safe Serve certification. So if you're not on the email list, please let me know so we can add you, and that way you're aware of when that will be available, and that there's also individual consulting that is available through this program if you're seeking assistance with your business planning. As we progress through the year, there'll be classes on accounting, marketing. We'll have various speakers. So please stay tuned and aware of everything that is going on. And Robbins has a question, is the Safe Serve certification an in-class activity? And I believe it is.
Is it an in-class activity?
In person, yeah, or in-class activity. I believe there'll be a separate training.
Yeah, there are folks who are Safe Serve trainers, and those classes can be in person, but there's also computer-based.
Okay, I know that that's a resource that will soon to come as well, but I'm pretty sure
it might be the food handler's license that is just an online sort of.
Okay, because I think this one may be in person, but we're not there yet. We're getting there.
You're absolutely right. Safe Serve is in person.
Okay.
I know the woman who conducts those classes.
Okay.
Yeah, so Safe Serve is in person.
Yes, we'll let you know ahead of time. We're working on securing the trainer for that, so we do appreciate your patience as we are still gaining all the resources that we can in order to be able to provide all the opportunities for training, individual consulting, access to Kitchen Share, but it will come throughout in the next upcoming months. And then we do have a comment that this was lovely, much appreciation and the compliments on having a great presentation and instruction.
Thank you. Are there any other questions in the chat at all? Anybody have any other comments or questions?
No other
Nothing
comments.
else?
There was one comment about the Goodwill having training on that as well. I'm assuming theirs is free. Ours will be free. Everything through the program, the Frenchtown Neighborhood Improvement Association, is free as well.
Right.
So if you're not able to utilize Goodwill or are looking for another alternative resource, through this program will be able to. So, and then the last comment before we close, Robin says, "Great class as always."
Thank you,
So,
thank you.
Thank you everyone
Wonderful.
for coming tonight. We really appreciate it. And again,
Yes.
we will upload the class to YouTube. So once we get a chance